What if Ethiopia went to war with Nigeria? Let's start with the first hour. The first missiles. The moment theory becomes terrifying reality. If this war begins, here is exactly where the fires start. Nigeria's first strike map, the Ethiopian highlands. Nigerian JF-17 jets, refueled mid-air over Chad, push into Ethiopian airspace at dawn. Their targets are not random. They follow a brutal, logical list designed to paralyze a nation. First, Dire Dawa. This is target number 1, not the capital. This dusty, ancient railway city is Ethiopia's economic jugular. The rail line from Djibouti port, carrying 95% of all imports, fuel, food, medicine, spare parts, runs straight through its heart. Precision-guided munitions turn the Dire Dawa rail yards into a twisted, smoldering ruin. The goal is simple: strangle the flow of life into Ethiopia before the first week is over. Second, Kombolcha and Awash. Twin hammers to industry and infrastructure. Kombolcha's industrial parks, which can be repurposed for war material, are leveled. The critical bridges over the Awash River at Awash town, connecting the north to the south and the east to the west, are dropped into the ravine. Ethiopia's internal movement is now fractured. Third, Bishoftu, home to Harar Meta Air Base. The home of Ethiopia's most advanced aircraft, their Su-30S, their attack helicopters. Nigerian runway-busting bombs crater every taxiway and apron. The goal isn't to destroy every jet. It's to trap them on the ground, rendering Ethiopia's prized air force impotent. Fourth, Bahir Dar and the shadow of the GERD. This is the psychological masterstroke. Not to destroy the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. That would be a biblical catastrophe. But a single warning missile impact on the adjacent hillside or a strike on the nearby Gorgora military station on Lake Tana. The message is unambiguous. We can touch your crown jewel. Your sovereignty is an illusion. The opening move is a decapitation strike against mobility, industry, air power, and national pride. Addis Ababa itself is left shuddering, watching the horizon, waiting for the next wave. Now, rewind 1 hour, because Ethiopia's first strike happens before the Nigerian jets even leave the tarmac. Ethiopia's first strike map, the Nigerian nervous system. Ethiopia does not try to fight the Nigerian Air Force. They aim to disappear the Nigeria that can fuel that Air Force. Their attack is digital, drone-based, and deniable. It targets not military bases but the fragile lattice of modern economic life. First, Lagos and Abuja, the cyber blackout. Simultaneous, sophisticated cyber attacks crash the servers of the Central Bank of Nigeria in Abuja and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation in Lagos. Financial transactions freeze. Oil export schedules, the lifeblood of the treasury, vanish into corrupted code. The stock exchange in Lagos blinks off. In a digital age, the first casualty is data. Second, Port Harcourt and Warri, the fuel heart attack. As chaos hits the boardrooms, swarms of low-flying drones descend on the Niger Delta. They are not targeting well-defended airports. They are targeting the sprawling, vulnerable complexes of the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries. A cascade of small, fiery explosions rips through distillation columns and pipeline junctions. Nigeria's already fragile ability to produce its own fuel evaporates in a series of fireballs visible from Bonny Island to Escravos. Third, Kaduna and Onitsha, the logistics guillotine. A secondary wave targets inland infrastructure. The critical Kaduna refinery, already a symbol of dysfunction, is finished with a precision strike on its power substation. The bustling Onitsha Bridge over the Niger River, the essential cargo artery for the entire southeast, is hit, not to collapse it, but to render it impassable. The result is instant catastrophic gridlock and supply chain collapse across the nation's economic heartland. Fourth, Jebba, the lights-out gambit, the deepest, most daring strike. A long-range cruise missile, or a special forces team inserted weeks prior, sabotages the control systems of the Jebba hydroelectric dam on the Niger River. The goal is not to burst the dam, but to blind it. With its controls fried, the dam's turbines shut down autonomously. A rolling blackout begins, swallowing Ilorin, reaching towards Abuja and Lagos. In one move, Ethiopia demonstrates it can plunge Nigeria into 19th century darkness. Before the sun has fully risen on this horrific, hypothetical day, the war's character is set. Nigeria is fighting a military war. It is bombing Ethiopian cities to destroy their capacity to fight. Ethiopia is fighting a societal war. It is attacking Nigerian cities to destroy their capacity to function as a coherent, modern state. This is the brutal, opening chess move. And with that image burned into your mind, the rail yards of Dire Dawa melting while the refineries of Port Harcourt burn, let's ask the real question. Can Nigeria survive this? Because the spreadsheet says yes. The GDP, the population, the raw numbers scream that Nigeria can absorb these blows, retaliate tenfold, and grind Ethiopia into dust. But the spreadsheet is a count of ghosts. It cannot measure the will of a people who have never been permanently conquered. It cannot calculate the corrosive power of 2,500 kilometers of desert. It cannot quantify the geopolitical panic that comes from threatening the water supply of 100 million Egyptians. This is not a war Nigeria wins. This is a war Nigeria survives if it's lucky, as a humbled and broken version of itself. Ethiopia's goal is not victory in the traditional sense. It is to make the cost of Nigerian victory higher than the Nigerian state can possibly bear. Now comes the second phase, the logistical nightmare. Nigeria has bombed Dire Dawa. To win, they must now hold it. They must occupy. And this is where the war ends. The distance from a Nigerian supply depot in Maiduguri to the Ethiopian city of Dire Dawa is over 2,000 kilometers of pure geopolitical poison. The route passes through N'Djamena, Chad, unstable. Through Abashe, Chad, a bandit kingdom. Through Darfur, Sudan, an active war zone. A convoy of 1,000 trucks would be a slow-moving feast. They wouldn't need orders to attack. The opportunity would be irresistible. The Nigerian army would spend more blood protecting its supply line than fighting Ethiopia. The dream of boots on the ground in Harar, Dessie, or Mekelle dies in the sands of eastern Chad. So the war remains in the air. A grinding duel. Nigeria holds the technical edge, Ethiopia holds the fortress. And then comes the unanswerable weapon, the hydraulic veto. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is not just power. It is a loaded gun pointed at Egypt. Ethiopia need only hint that the dam's operations are being disrupted. A private message to Cairo. The structural integrity of the dam is now a variable of this war. Egypt's response is primal. Overnight, Nigeria's diplomatic flank collapses. The world demands an end. Then the internal collapse begins. In Nigeria, the war is distant but devastating. Refineries burn. Lights flicker. The naira collapses. Bread triples. Fuel queues riot. Soldiers are pulled from internal security. The rot accelerates. In Ethiopia, the war unifies. Bombing becomes sacrifice. The diaspora controls the narrative. Nigeria loses the media war. The end is not Addis Ababa falling. It is a meeting in New York, a forced ceasefire, a buffer zone, armies separated that never truly met. So who wins? Ethiopia wins by making victory obsolete. Nigeria loses by proving it cannot win. The spreadsheet promised triumph. The real world runs on mountains, rivers, and endurance. True power is not destruction. It is survival. And Ethiopia, holding the Nile, survives. The giant does not fall to a sword through its heart. It bleeds out, forced to stop by a world that can no longer afford its rage.